I'm going to be honest with you. The day my boss made $33 million was the same day I learned exactly what I was worth to him. And it wasn't a number. It wasn't even a sentence. It was a nod, a handshake, and a security guy waiting behind me with a cardboard box. I'm telling this now because I need it out of my system. Because for 3 days, I walked around thinking I was the fool in the story. Turns out, I wasn't even close. I spent 7 years in that company. I wasn't the loud one, the office favorite, or the guy who laughed too hard at the boss's jokes. I was the one who made things work, the one who stayed late without announcing it, the one who built the biggest deal our department had ever touched. The deal that would eventually put $33 million into my boss's personal account. And the worst part, I didn't even celebrate when we closed it. I didn't take a victory lap. I just sat there at my desk, formatting the last documents, answering the last emails, making sure everything was airtight before we pushed it across the finish line. That's who I was, a quiet fixer in an office full of performers. But 2 weeks before the closing date, my boss started acting off. He stopped CCing me on emails. He forwarded client questions to a junior I had trained. He canceled our one-on-one meetings with vague excuses like, "Let's circle back later," or "priorities shifted." At first I thought it was stress. Big money makes people weird. But then he started avoiding eye contact. He walked differently, shoulders tense, smile thin. I'd greet him in the morning, and he'd give me this clipped morning, like I'd crashed a private meeting he never invited me to. Still, I pushed through. I finished every document, organized every call, kept the clients reassured. I was the one who'd earned their trust, not him. They called me directly, they asked for me by name, and when they signed, I was the one they thanked. And then he walked into my office. He didn't knock, just opened the door like he owned the air inside. "Got a minute?" he said. I nodded, already sensing something wrong. His eyes were too bright, like he was excited about something he wasn't supposed to be excited about. We closed the deal. $33 million. Big day, he said, pacing slowly. And the board and I have been reassessing the structure of the department. We're moving in a new direction. I felt a tightness in my chest. What does that mean? He didn't look at me when he said it. "We're letting you go." Just like that. 7 years, my work, my deal, his money. And why? I asked, because I genuinely needed to hear the lie he'd prepared. "We need someone more aligned with leadership goals," he said. "Someone more dynamic." Dynamic. That was the word he used after I built the entire foundation that made him rich. The security guard behind him shifted his weight. The box in his hand scraped against the doorframe. That's when I understood. This wasn't a decision made today. This was planned. Days ago. Maybe weeks. My boss stepped aside and gestured to my desk. "Let's keep this clean and simple." I looked at him. Really looked. And what hit me wasn't anger. It was clarity. He had never intended to reward me. He had just needed me to finish the deal before pushing me out of the way. I packed my things calmly. My mug, my pen, the small notebook with all my workflow shortcuts I'd memorized anyway. I handed over my badge. He didn't say thank you. Didn't say good luck. Just nodded like I was an inconvenience finally leaving his line of sight. When I stepped out of the building, the air felt colder than it should have. 7 years gone in 30 seconds. For the rest of the day, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been erased, wiped clean like a number on a whiteboard. I replayed the conversation again and again, wondering what I could have done differently. But by midnight, something strange happened. The anger didn't come. The sadness didn't come. Only silence, heavy, settling, almost peaceful. I went to sleep thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe this really is where my story ends. I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. But that was just the beginning. The morning after I got fired, I woke up at 6:30 out of pure habit. No alarm, no commute, No inbox waiting to explode. Just a quiet bedroom and a phone that didn't owe anyone anything anymore. I lay there staring at the ceiling, counting the things I had lost. Salary, health insurance, stability, whatever that means. Then I started counting what I hadn't lost. My brain, my experience, the mental map of that entire $33 million deal. Every clause, every red line, every side conversation the clients had trusted me with, and not my boss. It didn't make me feel better, not yet. It just stopped me from feeling completely worthless. Around 9 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Hey, it's Mark, from the team. His voice was low in that way people use when they're calling from a bathroom or an empty conference room. What's up? I asked. Pause. They really let you go, huh? I almost laughed. You calling to check if the rumor is true or if I evaporated? Man, I'm sorry, he said. We came in this morning and your desk was just empty. No announcement, nothing. Just HR saying you moved on. Yeah, I said. I moved? They pushed. He exhaled into the phone. Look, I know this is weird, but I've already had 3 emails from the client asking for you. They're confused. Of course they were. I'd been their point of contact for a year. What did they say? I asked. That they sent a couple of questions last night and your email bounced. It killed your account like 5 minutes after you walked out, dude. They thought it was a mistake. It hadn't even occurred to me that they'd cut my access that fast. I shouldn't have been surprised. You don't keep the ladder around after you've already climbed the roof. What did management tell them? I said. That you're no longer with the organization and that anything they need should go through Connor, now. Connor, the junior I trained, nice guy. No idea what he'd just been thrown into. I could almost see it. My boss smiling too widely on a video call, introducing Connor as the lead now. The clients trying to be polite while wondering why the one guy who knew every moving piece had just disappeared overnight. Are they pissed? I asked. Not yet, Mark said. Just uneasy. They already asked where the final allocation sheet is. Connor couldn't find it. It's in the shared drive, I said automatically. Folder Delta. Subfolder Final. File called Allocation V9 Final. Mark barked a short, humorless laugh. Of course you remember the exact path. I built the path, I replied. He went quiet for a second. Listen, if you don't mind. Can I call you if something blows up this week? Just off the record. I don't want to drown in front of everybody. There it was. That old instinct to fix everything, even when it wasn't my job anymore. Even when the same system that broke me was now asking for my help through the side door. No, I said finally. Not because I don't want to help you. Because they made sure I'm not part of this anymore, remember? If they want me, they can say my name themselves. Mark didn't argue. He just sighed. Yeah, I get it. For what it's worth, everyone here knows this is messed up. Knowing and saying are 2 different things, I said. Take care of yourself, okay? We hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, fighting the urge to call the client and warn them. Old loyalty is like a muscle memory. You feel yourself reaching for it even after the limb's been cut off. By noon, I'd updated my resume, mostly because I needed something to do with my hands. I made coffee I didn't really want. I checked job boards that all blended into the same blur of buzzwords and fake enthusiasm. At 1:14 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jenna, our project coordinator. She didn't bother with hello. What the hell happened? She whispered. Company line is restructuring, I said. Translation, they didn't want to share the bonus. They're idiots, she hissed. Do you know how many times the client has asked, where's Grant today? They were expecting you on the post-closing call. Guess they'll have to get used to disappointment, I said. It's not just that. She lowered her voice even more. There's an issue with the performance clause. The investors flagged something in the doc. They're asking questions I don't even understand. I sat up a little straighter. What clause? The one about the rollout timeline. Section 14.2, I think. They say it contradicts the appendix schedule. I closed my eyes. I knew exactly what she was talking about. We'd made a last-minute modification when the client wanted more flexibility. I had a clean version saved, with comments explaining the logic. I'd walked my boss through it, line by line. If they'd sent an older draft instead... Did you send them the final package from my shared folder? I asked. Management did, she said. Or they said they did. I don't have access to your stuff anymore. Of course not. Delete the guy, delete his structure. Who needs the architect once the building's up? You still at your desk? I asked. Yeah. Open the internal portal. Check which version number they logged. I listened to her typing. Her breathing got faster. It says V6, she whispered. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the wall. V9 was the clean one. V6 was the one that could cost them millions if someone pressed on the right spot. That's not good, I said calmly. No kidding, she shot back. They're on a call with the investors right now, trying to clarify it. Your boss has been pacing the hallway like a caged animal. Jenna, I said quietly, I know you want to fix things, but remember whose job that is now. It's not mine. They made sure of that. Silence on the line. Then softer. You don't deserve this. Probably not, I said. But here we are. We hung up. I set the phone face down and just sat there. Not angry, not panicking. Just watching the cracks appear in something I'd built too well for the wrong person. That night, I realized something important. They couldn't replace what they'd thrown away. Not with a cheaper hire. Not with a rushed promotion. Not with whatever story my boss was telling himself to sleep. Day 2 was worse. Not for me, for them. By mid-morning, my LinkedIn was lighting up with messages from people who had never remembered my birthday, but suddenly wanted to check in. Old colleagues, a vendor, even a guy from accounting I'd spoken to twice in 5 years. Crazy news! How are you holding up? Man, heard what happened. Total BS. If you're open to opportunities, I know a place that would kill for your skill set. And in between those messages, like a thread tying them together, were the clients. One of them found my personal email. Not sure how. Not sure I want to know. Hi, Grant. We were surprised to learn you're no longer with company. We wanted to reach out personally to say thank you for all your work on this deal. You made a complicated process feel manageable and transparent. If you're ever open to discussing independent consulting, we'd be happy to talk. I read that line 3 times. Independent consulting. For the first time since I'd walked out with my life in a cardboard box, the ground under my feet felt a little less shaky. Not solid yet, but not quicksand either. Then at 3:07 p.m., my phone rang again. This time it wasn't a whisper from a bathroom stall. It was my ex-boss's number. I watched it light up on the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't answer. He kept calling. Voicemail, call, voicemail, call. No text, no email. Just the old habit of him expecting people to jump when his name appeared. I put the phone on the table, screen down, and let it buzz itself tired. If this had happened a year earlier, I would have picked up on the first ring. I would have rushed to fix his mess, patch his reputation, clean his tracks. This time I made a different decision. I turned the phone to silent and opened my laptop instead. I started a blank document. At the top, I typed, services and rates. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost them everything. And then silence. The kind that means something's gone wrong, not on my end, on theirs. It started early in the morning on the 3rd day, before coffee, before I had even decided what to do with myself. I woke up to my phone vibrating so violently it fell off the nightstand. I ignored it at first, then it buzzed again, and again. 22 missed calls, 6 voicemails, all from numbers I recognized from years of meetings I'd run and crises I'd solved. The last number that called belonged to one person I never wanted to hear from again. My boss. I sat up slowly, rubbed my eyes, and waited. No call, no text. Just a stillness so sharp it felt like the pause between lightning and thunder. Then my email pinged. Not my old work inbox, the one they killed. my personal one. Subject line, urgent. Sender, one of the senior partners I'd only spoken to twice in 7 years. The email was short, clipped, and terrified in that polite corporate way. Grant, we need to discuss matters concerning the Delta acquisition. Please respond at your earliest convenience. I didn't respond, not out of spite, at least not yet. I just wanted to see how deep the hole was. It took about an hour for the next piece to fall into place. At 8:42 a.m., Jenna called me again, this time from what sounded like a hallway, with people murmuring in the background. Grant, she said without hello, without breath, the deal is collapsing. I didn't say anything. I waited. There's a discrepancy in the rollout timeline. The investors noticed the mismatch between V6 and their signed copy. They asked to speak to you directly. When management told them you were gone, they froze completely. They're refusing to move forward unless you get on a call. I leaned back in my chair. How bad is it? Bad, she whispered. The investors are threatening to pull out. The clients are furious. They said, and I'm quoting, the only person who understood the model is no longer available. Fix that, or we walk. And what did my boss say? Nothing, she said. He's shut in his office. He screamed at Connor. He screamed at legal. Then he locked the door. For a moment, I imagined it. Him pacing in circles, sweating through his shirt, trying to explain a document he never read, never cared about, never understood. I had given him a machine built with surgical precision. He tore out the mechanic and was shocked when the engine caught fire. Jenna's voice softened. Grant, they need you. I hated how good those words felt. I don't work there, I reminded her. Everyone knows, she said, but the investors are saying the same thing. Bring back the one who built it. They're giving management until the end of today. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence said enough. Grant, she whispered, they're falling apart without you. We hung up. I sat with that sentence for a long time. They're falling apart without you. 3 days ago, that thought would have filled me with pride or anger or some messy mix of both. But now, it felt like justice. Slow, quiet justice. At 10:03 a.m., my doorbell rang. I knew who it was before I opened it. I didn't rush. I didn't straighten my shirt. I didn't rehearse anything. I opened the door like it was any other morning. My boss stood there, the man who fired me without blinking, standing on my porch with a face that looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. His tie was crooked. His eyes were bloodshot. His confidence, the thing he wore like armor, was completely gone. Grant, he said, breathless, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe. Do we? His jaw clenched. I made a mistake. Which one? I asked. There were several. He swallowed hard. Look, the investors, they're demanding you come back, today. They won't finalize the post-closing transfers without you. I waited. He continued. If you could just come in for a few hours, answer some questions, reassure them. Why don't you ask Connor? I said. He's the dynamic one, right? He closed his eyes like the word physically hurt. Grant, please, this is serious. And firing me wasn't? He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the truth settle behind his eyes. He hadn't fired me because I was replaceable. He'd fired me because he thought he was untouchable. He wasn't. Grant, he said again, quieter this time, I'll compensate you for your time. I didn't answer. I just let him hear how pathetic his offer sounded in the open air. He cleared his throat. Whatever your rate is, just name it. Now we were speaking my language. Okay, I said calmly. You want my help? He nodded desperately. Then these are my terms. His eyes flicked up. You pay me consulting rates, I said. Not employee rates. Consulting. And you pay up front. He stiffened. How much? A lot more than you paid me when I worked for you. He opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded. And second, I added, you send an email to the investors and the clients stating, in writing, that the errors were on management's side, not mine. His face lost its last shade of color. That's, I mean, that could look accurate? I asked. Silence. He swallowed something sharp. Fine. And after that, you'll come in. I'll consider it. His shoulders sagged with relief, and that's when the micro-catharsis hit. Soft, clean, inevitable. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. He stood there waiting for me to save him. And for the first time, I wasn't the one under pressure. Get the paperwork ready, I said. All of it. Then we'll talk. He nodded, defeated, and hurried down my steps like a man running from a burning building. But he didn't realize something yet. I wasn't done. Not even close. I didn't want revenge, but life delivered it anyway. My boss sent the email within the hour, a perfectly polished confession written in the stiff, formal tone of a man who finally understood he was out of moves. He copied the investors, the clients, legal, senior partners, even the junior staff. The discrepancies identified in the Delta acquisition materials were due to internal management errors, not the contributions or oversight of Grant, last name. We are engaging him as an external consultant to ensure full accuracy moving forward. External consultant. Those two words alone were worth more than any apology he could have stuttered through. I replied with a simple, "Payment received. I'll join the call at 3 pas." The meeting link arrived instantly, like he'd been waiting with his finger hovering over send. I took my time, brewed coffee, cleaned the counter. Not out of pettiness, out of clarity. I wasn't going back to being the man who rushed to put out fires he didn't start. At 2:59, I clicked join. 9 faces appeared. Some I knew, some I'd never met. Investors, senior partners, the client rep, Connor looking like he hadn't slept. And my ex-boss? Sitting stiffly, shoulders tense, pretending he was in control of anything. "Grant," one of the investors said immediately, "thank you for joining. We're relieved to have you back, even in this capacity." Back. Not for them, for myself. I nodded politely. "Let's get started." For the next 90 minutes, I guided them through the entire deal. The logic, the structure, the timeline, the corrections, the versions. And as I spoke, something shifted in the room. People leaned in, they took notes. They stopped interrupting because they realized, maybe for the first time, that I was the architect, not the assistant. My boss didn't say a word. Not one. He just sat there, absorbing the weight of every sentence, every moment, every reminder of how badly he'd miscalculated. By the end, the investors were satisfied. The clients looked relieved. The senior partners looked embarrassed. Then one of them asked the question that changed everything. "Grant, would you consider returning to the company full-time?" My boss's head snapped up like someone had yanked a rope tied to his spine. He looked at me, panic flickering behind his eyes. I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to feel that silence, the same silence he gave me the day he fired me. Finally I said, "No." The air tightened. "I appreciate the offer," I continued, calm as a surgeon, "but I'm moving in a different direction." One of the investors leaned forward. "Can we ask what direction?" I didn't smile, not fully, but it pulled at the corner of my mouth. "I'll be opening my own consulting firm. Independent, lean, focused on high-level restructuring and deal architecture." My boss swallowed, hard. The senior partner nodded slowly. "If you launch, keep us informed. We may have clients for you." I didn't even have a website yet. Didn't matter. The room already believed in me more than the company ever had. The call ended with polite goodbyes and stiff nods. My boss stayed behind, hovering with that frozen half-smile he used whenever he was trying to hide fear. "Grant," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I didn't leave the call. I folded my arms. "About what?" He hesitated. "About everything. I know things got complicated. I know I made decisions that... You fired me the day you made $33 million, I said. No anger, no heat, just the truth. You fired the one person who kept your department alive. He deflated. I was wrong. Yes, I agreed. You were. And now you're out of time. He blinked. What does that mean? Check your email, I said. His phone buzzed. He glanced down, reading. I watched the color drain from his face. The board had removed him from his position. Effective immediately. He looked up slowly. You knew. I suspected, I said. They needed someone to blame. And for once, it wasn't going to be me. He sank back in his chair. So, that's it? It is, I said. For you. He looked like a man who'd finally realized the world would keep spinning without him. I didn't stay to watch him unravel. I clicked leave meeting, and just like that, he disappeared from my life. The next weeks were a blur, but a clean blur. I set up my LLC, filed paperwork, got a website built, bought a second-hand desk from a guy who used to run a tattoo shop, turned my spare bedroom into an office that smelled like fresh paint and quiet freedom. And then they started coming. First one client from the Delta deal, then another. Then a third that had nothing to do with my old company. Someone who'd heard about me through the grapevine. By month 2, I had more work than I could take. By month 3, I hired an assistant. By month 4, the same senior partner who once ignored my emails asked if I had availability for a project. I almost laughed. As for my former company, people talked. Companies always talk. The story was simple. The guy who built the deal left. The company that broke him started breaking itself. The clients followed the competence, not the logo. My boss, the man who once thought he was untouchable, faded it into irrelevance. Some said he moved out of state. Some said he tried to start something new. Some said he never recovered. Doesn't matter. I wasn't watching. 6 months after the day he fired me, I drove past the old office building. Not intentionally. I was on my way to meet a client, but when I saw the familiar glass facade, something in me settled. It didn't hurt. It didn't sting. It didn't even echo. It was just a place where a different version of me used to sit. I parked for a moment and let the quiet fill the car. Then I whispered something I hadn't realized I'd been waiting to say. I'm not angry anymore. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It just replaces the noise. I started the engine and pulled away, leaving the building, the past, and the man who fired me in the rear view. And that was the real victory. Not the money, not the clients, not the consulting firm. It was the simple fact that I didn't want to go back. Not even for $33 million.